Welcome to Steve Marriott Coaching. I've got a couple of questions for you today. So my first question is, if you're a manager or a leader, where do you spend most of your time? Probably in meetings of some description. My second question is, where do you feel you waste most of your time? I think the answer that a lot of you will come to is in meetings, bloody meetings. When I talk to managers and leaders about making changes, the first thing that we need to look at is where they're spending their time and their energy. And far too many of them are spending far too much of their time sitting in meetings which they walk out of feeling like they've not contributed to or have actually been a waste of time. So we need to change that. Now, that's not to say that meetings are bad in and of themselves. It's just that without focus, they tend to be neither effective nor affective. And what I mean by that is effective means that it enables us to move in a different direction or do things differently. And affective means that the decisions and actions that are taken from a meeting have an impact on others who weren't in the room or your wider business. So when we lose focus on effective and affective, what happens to our meetings? Well, they start late, people turn up unengaged, they turn up unprepared because we haven't given them a reason why they're in the room, because our meetings lack a purpose, they lack an outcome, and they lack a focus. They're just there because we've got a gap in our diary and it feels like the right thing to do to gather people together. So when we don't have a purpose and an outcome and people are disengaged, we invite the wrong people. And when the wrong people are in the room, then they either don't contribute because they feel like they're not actively involved or they don't have permission. Or contrary to that, they over-contribute the wrong stuff. So we get into detail, we talk about things that are in the weeds that really don't focus because we haven't set that focus at the start. What then I see happening is that we will talk about what's known. So we'll talk about things that are in general arena. We've read it in an email, we're generally all aware of it. And when that happens, what happens is when people want to contribute is I see a thing called violent agreement. So a person will make a statement and we all agree with it. So in order to make agreement, instead of saying yes, people feel compelled to give their own reason why the previous point was the right point. So you get lots and lots of different stories, all basically saying exactly the same thing. Stuff we know, stuff we already agree about. Now that burns time, and that means that your meeting's going to overrun. And when we start getting short on time, what happens is the likelihood is we're going to miss out on some key discussions and some key points, and we're going to miss out on action. Because that's the most important thing about your meeting. Any meeting that does not drive a decision or an action is by definition a waste of time. If all you're going to do is share information that's already known, if all you're going to do is agree on the context, then we could have done that via email. A meeting is about people, and people need to make contribution. So the next time you're invited to a meeting, here's some questions that you need to ask before you click attend or yes, I'll come to it. Ask what the purpose is. What's the purpose of the meeting? And remember, the purpose is about creating an action or making a decision. If you can't clearly define the action or the decision, it's not really going to be a purposeful meeting. So maybe you want to say no. The next thing is, if it does have a purpose, a decision or an action, then what's your role? Now, your role is really simple. You are either the provider of unknown information or different perspective, or you have the ability to facilitate, authorize, or make a decision, or you're the person who's got an action that will be taken as a result of the meeting. If you don't fulfill any of those criteria, you have no role. Therefore, you shouldn't be in the room. So again, refuse. Go and do something more useful with your time. Now, if you are tempted to create a meeting, bring a gathering, here are some of the things that you need to do before you start sending out invitations. The first thing is write down the purpose and the outcomes. What are the actions that you need taken or the decisions that need to be made? And what's the information that you need to explore? Then only invite people who have a role, who can actively contribute, who can be involved in the meeting. You don't want passengers and you don't want people just sitting there drinking coffee and sucking up oxygen. So be ruthless and only get people in who can be vibrant and actively move the business forward. The next thing is, once you've got people in the room, be brave enough to state your behavioural expectations. We make a massive assumption that people know and understand how to be effective at meetings, and the truth is most people don't. They just copy what goes on. So if somebody begins to behave badly, then it won't be too long before everybody in the room begins to behave badly. So as the organiser, make a statement about, this is how we want to conduct ourselves, this is how we will show agreement, this is how we will show disagreement, and this is where we want to move to. When you make that statement, more people will know exactly how to behave in your meeting. So be brave, step up and make those expectations clear. The next thing you need to do is control the agenda and control the content or the conversation, because it can very quickly go over the barriers. So be very clear on timing, be very clear on what we're about to talk about. So when you're talking about it, make it clear that you need to explore unknown information. When we begin to do violent agreement, respectfully stop people and get them into the place where you need to be. That's your role as the meeting organizer. Control the agenda, control the conversation and the content. If there's any information that people need before, then you might want to think about send that out before. So the data and the information and the making of meaning is something that people can do in their own time. To maximize the use of human time, we need to have opinion, we need to have debate, we need to have differences of opinions, and we need to get into it. So do yourselves a favor and get all of that information giving done before people come into the room, because that way you'll have more energy, you'll have more commitment, and people will move out of the meeting feeling like they've really, really achieved something. Again, now as a person controlling the agenda, you need to be ruthlessly focused on action. So talking and talking and talking is all very well, but you need to have that eternal question: what action is this driving? What decision are we making? If the answer is no, get it back into the focus. So drive people towards actions and decisions. And then finally, the biggest thing that's going to keep people motivated and keep people wanting to contribute is stick to time. Start on time, finish on time. The biggest sin that people will make is not starting on time. But even worse than that is stealing time from other meetings. People will love you if you finish 2 minutes early. They'll hate you if you finish 2 minutes late. So keep those in mind: purpose, roles, behavioural expectations, control the agenda, focus on decisions and actions, and keep to time. And your meetings will be way more effective, way more effective, and you'll find that you actually free up more time.